Hello and welcome everybody to our Careers Insight talk today. We are going to be looking at what next after your level 2 or your level 3 apprenticeship around credit control, etc. And really pleased to have guest speakers with us to help us through those questions of what kind of role you might be doing next and what further study you might be interested in. I'm Jenny Pelling. I'm the Director of Apprenticeship Development and Diversity at Kaplan, and I have a particular focus on careers. I'm delighted to be joined by our expert panel. As you introduce yourself, actually, I'll open the first question out to you, and I'd like you just to explain a little bit about your career story. So, Stephen, could we start with you, if you could introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Stephen Radley. I'm 26 and in the East Midlands area. I started as an apprenticeship, well, it'll be about 8 years now, through AAT, just as a purchase ledger clerk. Stayed there for about a year, progressed to level 3 AAT and then level 4. Then moved over to my current job where I'm a finance manager for a builder's merchant. That's when I started ACCA and then moved on to the CICM, completed level 3 and then level 5, I think 2 years ago now. And now progressing on to a master's in management. So hopefully that will, in a couple of years, hopefully director role in the same scheme. So that's kind of me.
Brilliant. You will inspire many people with that learning mindset. That's great. Heather, how about you?
Yeah, of course. I think mine's probably a little bit shorter. So I went into an operations management graduate scheme straight out of uni. So I did my undergrad in oil and gas management. Oil market collapsed halfway through. So I thought that's not very good. So I did a master's in management, which was a bit more general, just to open my options up a little bit. And then moved into an graduate operations management scheme. After about a year or so in that one, I wanted to change it up to something a bit more technical. So I then took on my current role. I'm the assistant credit manager for the Southwest region for Edmondson Electrical. And also starting very recently, started helping out CICM part-time as well. So that's me.
Fantastic, thank you, welcome. And Mary, our expert from CICM, over to you.
Hello. So I'm probably going to start by saying something that lots of people in credit often say, which is I fell into credit. So you talk to lots of people in a credit role and they fell into it. They didn't go looking for it, although that is changing and that's really nice to see. So I started as a sales ledger clerk, which is sort of more of a background role, but super important, making sure that money, etc., is applied properly, and worked my way through to a credit control role. And I decided to study for CICM qualifications, probably around 1992, 93, showing my age there. And I completed all of the levels up to level 5. And I was a practicing credit manager for people like Pilkington's, Aggregate Industries, Owens Corning, so quite industrial really. And I obviously, alongside my studies, became a member with CICM right at the outset, and so became involved with them firstly in terms of assessing some of their exams. And one of my old college lecturers approached me along the way and asked if I'd ever thought about teaching. So I fell into that as well, although actually that's not true, because I absolutely did decide to do that consciously. So had the opportunity to do teacher training, so I'm a qualified teacher as well. And all those roads have sort of led me towards doing what I'm doing now, which is the qualifications and apprenticeship delivery manager for CICM. So nice rounded way of still being involved in credit, but more on the teaching and delivery side.
Fantastic, thank you, Mary. So what I'm going to do is just ask a couple of questions of our panel, but we're quite informal. This is a careers conversation. So by all means, everybody, put your questions into the chat to everyone, and then we'll take those as well, what you would like to know about future study or roles. So just to kick things off, I think, this theme of the talks we're doing is insight. So Stephen, could you give some insight? A typical day probably doesn't exist, but an average day of the work that you're doing now, so people can see what's ahead.
Yeah, kind of morning and first thing in the morning is kind of a 5-minute chat with both teams. Kind of purchase ledger, what we want them to do on that day, and then sales ledger is the more kind of detailed chat. And then onto that is for me is kind of monitoring reports, making sure that we've done all of our jobs, and kind of just overseeing the general team. But as you know, that comes with issues, problems that have gone on in the day, and then just kind of resolving them. And then kind of the management accounts bit for me is more of reviewing the financial information I've got and then kind of implementing tasks to make the financials better is the main of it. But yeah, as you said, no days are the same.
Absolutely. Thank you though for giving that insight. Eva, what about you? What typically happens on your day?
I think again, like you touched on, it's never quite the same, but we do have different things that happen at different times of the month, for example. But a normal day would probably be allocations in the morning. You're getting all your payments in, making sure all your accounts are up to date. Obviously, amending stop lists and things, and it's a lot of problem solving. So a lot of things, as you can imagine, go wrong. Our processes are pretty manual. We do have some reliable systems in place, but because it's manual, it's prone to mistakes, and it does need some oversight. So a lot of that involved, and then midday you probably get your banking through in post. A lot of people still using post, so you're working through those. Credit appraisals, so we do have applications through daily, so you look over those finances, decide what kind of credit limits you'll give those, the risk categories, and then your general meetings, reports and stuff, as Stephen touched on as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Mary, is there anything that you want to pick out from your career you typically did?
Yeah, so interestingly, when you move away from a credit role, as obviously I have done in terms of actual practice, one of the things I worry about, particularly teaching, is am I still up to date with it? Do I still know what it feels like to be in that situation? So I'm very fortunate that a number of learners that I've worked with over the years that have been local enough have been very kind and invited me in. So every now and again, I will make sure that I spend a day in the shoes of somebody in a credit role, just to make sure that it's still real. And what I found is that the systems might change, so the technology improves things, and obviously that depends on where you are. Obviously Heva's just said that they've still got quite a lot of manual systems, so it does depend on the size of the organisation that you're in, but the fundamental tasks and priorities and issues and challenges don't. And it is ultimately trying to find that balance between ensuring that you are protecting the company's biggest asset, which is cash flow. It's such a super important role, whilst maintaining the customer base and not losing customers. So it's a fine line that we tread, which I think is what's so interesting about the role. It's often pigeonholed as being just a finance role, and that's so narrow in its view, because we as credit professionals, few people get to sort of see that finance side of the business and also be so front facing with the customers. So it's really nice to be able to every now and again go back and see what that's like in reality. For my role now, of course, it's a bit different. So a typical day for me could be talking to individual learners about where they're at with their studies. Somebody might have been disappointed because they haven't quite managed to achieve a pass first time in one of their assessments. So trying to keep them motivated, chatting through their results and giving them some tips about what perhaps to do next, getting ready for retakes. Equally, I might be talking to a very large client who's looking at putting a whole cohort of their team through. So looking at what that might look like in terms of timetabling, obviously spending time with important stakeholders like Kaplan and other training providers. So it's really, really, really varied, and I enjoy it immensely.
Excellent. Well, all your enthusiasm is really palpable for this. So let's take the other kind of aspect of this. We've had a little bit of a discussion about typical day roles. Now let's think about further study. So take first, if I'm a level 2 apprentice, what's it like moving up to level 3? What do I need to know? What's involved? Mary, do you want to start? Then I might come. Eva, do you want to take that one next?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would
Mary,
be
do you
good.
want to start?
Yeah, so I suppose when people, it's one of the questions we get asked a lot, actually, not just by those going through the apprenticeship at level 2, but also people joining us directly on a non-apprenticeship route, in terms of who is level 2 most appropriate for. And for me, I feel that it's a great qualification to start for people with not very much experience in the role, perhaps fairly new to industry, or slightly nervous about maybe the academic side of taking exams. And level 2 is a great place to start to give people a solid foundation to build on. So some of the skills that you'll be looking at level 2 will include business communications, managing personal skills, so that will be time management, organisation skills, And it will also look at the starting point of credit really as a product and end-to-end processes. So thinking about onboarding all the way through to collections and possibly passing it out to a third party. But because it's level 2, it doesn't go into a huge amount of depth on those more technical aspects, so things like credit risk, using third parties, but it gives people a great platform to build on that. And that's what we start to look at level 3, but I'll let Heather give his own experience of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly how I would have started it. I think level 2 is probably ideal for someone that is new to the role, or someone that might have been in the role for even a long time, but who's had very narrow responsibilities. I think at that point, then if level 2 introduces you to the whole credit function, it gives you exposure to all of it, lets you kind of understand the foundation of it all. And then I think when you're looking at level 3, you're looking at, you know, taking more initiative, more leadership. It then does go down to the details of credit risk, risk categorization, finances. It touches on a lot more things like that, I think.
Yeah. Okay,
so
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then let's go up a next stage. So Stephen, I'm going to come to you. So, you know, we've got people with us in the audience today who are doing a level 3 apprenticeship of advanced credit control. So how about for them? What's the further study route for them after level 3? Because you've done this. So
yeah, so level 5, I'd say it's the same sort of jump to 2 to 3. It is a big jump. It's going to take more time, but for me, it felt like that specialization. So you can obviously pick your topics, but it felt well more rounded to what I wanted to do. Rather than kind of a generic course again, it was that I could actually specialize in my area. And it actually, for me, made me more interested. Although I was interested anyway, as I could kind of select the topics, it was like, actually, yes, I want to do that as a job. So let's go into it. The assignment writing helps if you do want to go to even on beyond, go to a master's. A lot of people kind of get to that level of, and for me as well, I'd always done AAT, ACCA, so I've done 20, 30 exams, but never done an assignment. So having to write out 3,000 words for me seems crazy because I could fill it in a question. So yeah, it's a big step up. It's worth it, and it definitely allows you to start specializing in, and you'll see a massive change in your role, because for me, it allowed me to go into management. Whereas when I was just reviewing it myself, the level 5 actually allowed me to think, actually, no, what do I need to give to people for them to do the job? So it's just it's kind of a nice progression if you do want to finish it.
Excellent, thank you. So we might pick up on that management, because it's often asked around, what other skills you're developing. So let's come back to that. And we've had a couple of questions in the chat. Thank you, everybody. So a kind of one, first of all, on the sector, really interesting question. What would you say have been the biggest changes in the last 10 to 20 years that have impacted credit control or management? Open to the panel, whoever would like to take that one.
I've only been in it 8 years, so I'll admit in the 8 years, but I think we've had some massive changes. So for me, COVID was not a brilliant time, but for me in my job, it was an easier time because people needed their building products, so they had to pay. So there was no dragging it out and using another merchant. It was very easy for us. You're not getting your goods, okay, we'll pay, and it was instant. Now we're getting the opposite of that. We're getting more people are being more flexible. Other merchants are being a lot more tight with price. And it now seems to be that people are harder to chase. So money's a lot harder to collect, people are being tighter, and it just the industry for me seems a lot harder. And I think one big push is AI. Now, I'm even myself at my age, I don't know much about it yet, but I hear about it weekly. I hear companies. So I think AI is going to be massive in the next 5 to 10 years of credit management.
I'd pick up on that, definitely. I think just looking at the speakers that we have, and obviously the themes, training requests that we get, and talking to our members, I would say it's the automation massively. 20 years ago, I was practicing credit management, and that is the thing that I, when I go in and spend some time with learners and colleagues and customers, that's the thing that hits you more than anything else. So it's what that allows people to do is dedicate their resources to the more technical elements, because the automation allows for the initial chases and so on to go out, and the really sort of what we might call run-of-the-mill activities, and then you can use your resource to really start to hone in on where are the problem areas, where do we really need to focus this? And because of that, of course, that has changed maybe sizes of teams as well. Businesses don't perhaps need as many people as they perhaps might have needed in the credit team. With larger organisations, alongside the automation rather, we've seen sort of specialisation as well. So you tend to find in a large team, it's not as usual as it would have been 20 years ago to have somebody doing end-to-end credit processes. They tend to be working in one specific area of it. So maybe early collections, and then you've got another team who are looking at the late collections, the back end of the ledger, or the people that just do risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on a really interesting point, Mary, and that is the evolution of the skill set as well. So when we talked about roles and progression and further qualifications, actually, you know, there are things like data analytics that people could move into, as well as a qualification or additional CPD as well. So thinking slightly laterally, I suppose, too. We've had a question in about, Stephen, in response to your point about level 5. How is the CICM Mary level 5 credit management qualification viewed within the credit industry? Are there any downsides? Is it slightly below a full degree qualification?
Personally, I've seen no issues with it. I think the difficulty is there aren't anything above it. So I searched for, that's where my starting point was. I searched for a credit management degree and then realised in England I couldn't get one. So then the level 5 isn't a degree, but you know, in terms of being the highest qualification I could find, it was fine. If you do look for jobs, most jobs I am seeing now do say CICM part or full. I never see reference to degree. And ones I have actually applied for that have said, you know, we require a degree. I'm sure if you state CICM and kind of explain about it, there's never been any issues for me.
I think I would just add to that. If you are interested in credit management, I would 100% recommend you do take that approach. It's the highest qualification from the largest body within the sector, within the role. It does give you a huge advantage. And I think, like Stephen was saying, now I'm seeing more and more jobs pop up that require CICM. So it just lets you really demonstrate you understand the function, its cycles, its responsibilities. Especially if you're a bit younger, if you don't have that 10, 15 years experience, you can be a huge disadvantage if you don't have that CICM to show you have been through what you need to cover to understand the role.
Yeah, I mean, we usually, when we're talking to people, people like to sort of know the context of what is it I'm studying, and can you give it an equivalent. So we'll typically say to people that level 5 is equivalent to the second year of a degree course. So with a degree, as you know, you get that first year that helps you to develop those research skills and the skills that you'll need, and it's your second year that really starts to count. What we do know anecdotally is that people that study the level 5 also do often get the opportunity to go on and do MBAs or masters if they've already got a first degree somewhere else. So it does absolutely open doors to further progression. Picking up Stephen's point, I know that there are some business degrees out there that might have an element of credit within them. So you might be able to do some level of risk or something else, but not a pure credit degree. So it can be a little frustrating, but I think you're absolutely right. If you're going for a credit role, and the employer has an appreciation, or you can help them understand what it is that you've studied. And when they see the range of units that you will have taken to make up that level 5, I think that starts to really give some context to it. They're very strategic. You can obviously build, as Stephen said, the 6 units, but you pick 4 that best suit what you're doing now and the skills that you want to gain. And it's a really solid, robust, higher level qualification.
Thank you all. I'm going to come back to a point Stephen made there, which was, you said that even if it says in a job application you need to have a degree, you apply and you explain. Now, I'm just going to pause there. That's the brilliant thing to do. And typically women probably aren't as good at that, are they? They might see all of the feel that they have to meet every single thing on the job criteria. But I think that's a really good piece of advice you shared. Thank you. Okay, we've got another question, Mary, this might be one for you, regarding the automation and technology development. Is it possible that in the future a credit control role will require more IT knowledge, and is there a chance that that could be covered in the qualification?
That's a really good point, actually. I guess as we move further and further towards that mix of automation and AI. I imagine that, yes, some of those skill sets will become more relevant and more prevalent, and that might be another area that gives people specialisms. I know that there's no immediate plans to bring it into our qualification in terms of more than it's already there, but it's a really good point, and I'm happy to sort of take that back and share that with the team. It is something that we are very aware of, and we will obviously develop our qualifications and look at syllabuses and change them to make sure that they remain relevant and fit for purpose.
Yeah, and I suppose, Mary, as well, as the standards are revised, apprenticeship standards, that's the point at which, you know, skills are again updated, duties are reviewed, behaviours are updated. So it's happening at the moment with green and sustainable knowledge. That's coming into every apprenticeship standard, and it's probably going to be the same. The next review we'll see kind of an update on IT knowledge required as well. Okay, some great questions there. Thank you. Right, Stephen, I believe you said you're doing a master's degree now. Did you have to do anything after your level 5 before you could start your master's?
No, the CICM level 5 allowed me to go straight onto it.
Perfect, short and sweet. I've got one for you, and here I'm going to start with you on this one. How have you gone about your career progression? Have you had mentors? Who have you turned to for advice?
Myself, no, I hadn't got a mentor. For me, it was just about setting the goal that I wanted to be chartered. Well, at first I wanted to be a chartered accountant, so that led me down AAT, ACCA. Then I took my couple of years out onto CICM, and then I wanted to be a credit manager. And for me, it was about setting goals and hitting them, and then not stopping. One of my big people was Tyson Fury. When he got heavyweight champion, as soon as he hit his goal, he went downhill. So for me, I don't like to set goals, and when I've hit them, celebrate, which is one bad side, but I like to hit the goal, then carry on. So for me, it was just about carrying on and hitting them. Now, the only person that is a mentor is my FD, my manager. But again, he did a degree years ago, kind of 40, 50 years ago. So it was very much the whole training, the whole world has changed since then. So it was just about kind of, pushing on for my goals and then convincing them of that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think what might be a little bit reassuring to some people is, again, I haven't had a consistent someone there that I can always turn to. So if there isn't someone like that for you, that's not necessarily the only way to do it. I think as Mary started, I fell into the role, and my original line manager introduced me to the CICM. And then through there, I've had a few different managers who have all kind of supported me in their own capacity. Many of them haven't done the CICM course, but I've been given the time. And obviously being credit managers, they still have a lot of good advice to give in general. So I've just kind of taken little bits from everyone around me. And that's ultimately how I'm working my way through it.
And people are always really open to networking and to helping and to mentoring others. So, LinkedIn is such a good resource, obviously, for that. But, keep up with your networks too. Mary, I'm going to come to you for a question. I'm currently doing the level 2 qualification. Would you recommend going into the level 3 straight away following completion of that apprenticeship, or to leave a gap to reflect on the learning from the level 2 apprenticeship?
I think it depends to some extent how your experience has been and how you feel and what's going on with your own work situation, because the level 3 is a step up, and it is a bigger qualification, and it becomes more technical in nature. So I think we never shy away from the fact that it's a quite a robust and full qualification. So your environment has to be right to make sure that you feel you're at the right place to complete that. So I would say, in general, once you've got your EPA and you've finished your level 2 apprenticeship fully, I would say carry on, because there is that school of thought that once you're in that learning mode, it's great to just keep that momentum going. But it is right that you need to reflect on where are you at? Do you have the time to allow to this qualification? The level 3 CICM diploma is around 400 hours study in its own right. And that's without anything else that you will need to do to ensure that you've met the full knowledge, skills and behaviours of the standard. So it is right that you look at the commitment required. But if that's in place, absolutely carry on, I would say.
Excellent. Good advice, Mary. Thank you. Okay, so how about now taking a view of highlights? Stephen, what has been the highlight of your career to date?
For me, it was to finally get kind of letters after my name, which sounds very kind of sad for someone, but it was just to kind of, as I hadn't got a degree, there's kind of nothing there after my name that certified it. Although I'd got AAT, I'd seen a lot of people with that. And for me, it was just the amalgamation of AAT, CICM, and so on and so on. It was just about being kind of the best that I can possibly be. And the letters kind of show that by kind of actually qualifying it, you keep ticking the box in my head. So
Proof to the world.
Yes. Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. Hiva, how about you?
It's a pretty tough one. Obviously, I was pretty happy finishing university, but I think I still walked away with that kind of feeling there isn't really a skill that's mine that I can employ anywhere. But I think after finishing the level 5 CICM, I felt I really did have something very technical that not many people have. And to get recognized and moved up to an assistant manager in my role, I think just solidified that to me as well. And now I've kind of, I've done a management at uni, but you kind of, if you go to any new company, you're kind of having to start again and fit in with their culture and values and their structure. But if you take something like CICM, you're getting taught the technicals and the whole function, so you can employ that anywhere.
Yeah, I'm really pleased you picked up on that point about developing management skills as being part of the career highlights as well. Thank you. Mary, I'm going to come on to you for 2 quick questions, if I may. One is in the chat around what are the required off-the-job learning hours for level 3? And the second one is, are there any plans to offer the level 5 CICM course as an apprenticeship?
So first one then, in terms of learning hours, our qualification, as I said, has a roughly around 100 hours suggested total qualification time per unit. And because you need to complete 4 to achieve your level 3 diploma, that's where the 400 hours comes from. I'm not sure how many hours would be suggested outside of that on top of the apprenticeship, Jenny, because we're not a main training provider, so I haven't got that level of detail. But what I can say is that the programme at level 3 runs between sort of 18 months and 2 years, but that's everything. So that's our technical qualification and also meeting all of the knowledge, skills and behaviours and going forward to the endpoint assessment. So it's a 2-year programme and you absolutely need those 2 years. In terms of off-the-job training, I know that the apprenticeship rules do state that your employer needs to give you the equivalent of approximately a day a week if you're a full-time employee, and that day means that you can join us for the live classes that we run as part of the technical qualification, do the pre-read, the post-read, the homework and all the other bits that go with it. So at least a day a week.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's
just
sort of 6 hours a week, isn't it? Is the kind of, but yes, it almost amounts to a day. Hiva, did you want
just
to
very briefly add to that as well? I think when Mary or any of us start talking about these hours and it's like 400 hours, it sounds very daunting. But when you are spreading that over months or the year, it only works out to a few hours here and there a week. So
yeah.
it sounds like if you break it down, it's a lot more manageable than it probably sounds when we speak about it.
Really good point, actually. And we do normally say to people that is roughly 5 to 6 hours a week. So it's a really valuable point, Hiva. Thank you.
Absolutely. And as Mary said, your employer has to give you that time. So it's there ring fenced for you.
I didn't answer the question. Sorry,
yes,
Jenny, about the level 5.
Yeah, I'll come on to that one in a second. So we've got a couple of minutes left. So I'm really keen because it's the first time that we've done this. So as Mary answers the next question, I'm going to put a short survey in the chat. I'd really like everybody to complete that so we know if this hit the mark for you, if it's something we haven't covered that you'd like. So Mary, over to you on the question, are there any plans to offer level 5?
Yeah, so our level 5 qualification does actually sit inside a level 6 apprenticeship. I think it's the financial services one. It's not been taken up in any sort of great demand really, which is perhaps why you're not aware of it. So it is actually possible to do our technical level 5, but it is not a credit controller apprenticeship, if that makes sense. And there isn't many training providers that are offering it. Hence why the majority of people that are looking at progression after their level 3 apprenticeship, if you're going to do the level 5, tend to end up doing it directly with us. But it actually does sit inside of a couple of level 6 apprenticeships.
Fantastic. Honestly, we've had the really engaged audience, so thank you everybody for taking part. Thank you to our panel, Stephen, Hiva and Mary. You've provided exactly what we asked for, career insights, and you've explained future roles, possible roles and further study. So really grateful to you all. And if people could just take the last minute to complete that survey, we'll know what to do when we run this again for you. But thank you all so much for joining us. I wish you all the best with your future careers. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.